Hey, it's Sam, and I'm speaking today about the moon in Scorpio. Now, the moon is the part of us that is related to the water and the feeling of life, how life feels to us. We've all incarnated as this form which has emanated from spirit, and that embodied life feels a certain way to us. And we experience that in the moon. So our moon is that feeling of being alive, and it's also the place where our karmas are stored. It's what's called the jiva, or the jiva atman, that self which goes with us from lifetime to lifetime, and it gives us a personal experience of how life feels and how our karmas arrive in our mind first, based on our past experiences and our tendencies. Now, when the moon is in Scorpio, this part of our consciousness and of our identity is put in this area of life related to Scorpio, which is a sign that's ruled by Mars. So it's somewhat sort of willful and assertive, and it's also a water sign, so it's also emotional and sensitive and also devotional. And so this quality of Scorpio, which is also fixed rather than dual or cardinal, it's fixed, which is about trying to stabilize. All of these things become important. So we have like the willfulness of Mars, the fixed quality of Scorpio, and the emotional quality of the water sign, all integrate with the natural quality of the moon, which again is that emotional surface, but the depth of the water underneath. So again, with the moon, we have the surface of the water, but then we also have the depth. Once we stabilize the moon, then we're no longer bounced up and down on the waves of emotion. Instead, we go deep into the emotional depth. So with Scorpio, there's actually that emotional depth possible. But what tends to happen is instead we wind up getting stuck in the emotions. And rather than having the courage of Mars take us deeper, we instead get into the willfulness of Mars. And the willful nature of Mars gets us into emotional battles with others. And we can get into these emotional struggles and battles with others rather than going deep and having the courage to go deep and face our own emotional confusion. So every planet and sign has this sort of possibility where we can either get into the outer dysfunctional quality of the energy where in this case we would become too emotional, and as we start to feel these emotions, we lash out at others who we feel are making us feel this emotional stress and turbulence. Or when this emotional passion becomes awakened, we have the true courage to go deep into the heart and stabilize our emotions and follow that back to its source, which is pure love and pure devotion. So anything that is functioning through the Scorpio paradigm has this possibility of either depth and emotion, or aggravation and willfulness and potential manipulation and getting stuck emotionally. You see, because one of the things with Scorpio is it's where we can either concentrate and go deep into something, or we can get stuck in it and not know how to move and then become frustrated. frustration comes when things build up, right? Like if you're trying to walk and I get in your way and I keep blocking your path, eventually you're going to get frustrated, right? But let's say I try to block your path and then you stop trying to walk and you just say, okay, well then I'll just stay here. Then what happens is your energy, rather than trying to go this way, just goes this way, just goes deep. And again, this energy that I'm talking about is emotional energy. And so one of the biggest challenges when the moon is in Scorpio, especially like in a natal chart or in the sky, is to not emotionally react and not become willful and aggressive, and to not become emotionally willful and aggressive and stubborn and stuck and trying to win and trying to control, but instead try to control ourselves and go deep. Because once we stop trying to control another or win a battle or manipulate a situation, once we stop doing this and trying to get past the try to get past the barrier, what happens when we surrender and let go is we go deep. And this is always the key for water signs. Any planet in a water sign has to learn how to surrender. And then all of that emotional passion, or that passion that gets channeled into emotion and turbulence, once we learn to surrender, it becomes depth. And surrender is hard. It means to let go and trust. Let go and trust and dissolve. Particularly in Scorpio, because there's so much volatility and so much stress and pressure that's possible there. When the Scorpion can let go, or when a planet in Scorpio can let go, it goes deep. Because it's already somewhat stuck. But you want to understand that it's kind of like when water becomes stagnant. Like when water is flowing through the ocean or through a river, which has to do with, for instance, Cancer and Pisces, then it's flowing a lot. There's more flowing happening. Scorpio, it's kind of stuck. This is why Scorpio can get stuck in their emotion, or planets in Scorpio can get stuck in their emotion and have a hard time letting go. So, for example, when Scorpio loves someone, and then the biggest fear is that, okay, I'm already in love, or I love this thing, what happens if they stop loving me? What happens if it changes? And then I'm still going to be stuck with my emotion, just not going to change very quickly, and I won't have an outlet to express it. So it's this fear of getting stuck with something external, and then what to do with all that passion. And so again, what the Scorpio person, or what the planet in Scorpio needs to do, is be stuck with the truth, stuck on something internal, stuck on their own devotion and emotional purity. And then once that happens, then there's the courage to go deep and face the turbulence and the vulnerability of that sign. So you notice I haven't even really talked about that it's debilitated and all that, because these are just words. They definitely have an impact, but it's more important to be able to explain the nature of the planet first. Like the moon is the part of us that's the heart, that expresses itself as emotion or depth through devotion and pure love. And it's the part of us that's the jiva, that is how life feels to us. That's important. And then you take that faculty of consciousness and put it in the sign, which is ruled by Mars. It's watery, it's fixed. There are other qualities to it. But once you do that, then you don't have to get into so many of the things that are judgments. And the debilitation is certainly important, but just an example, when you're doing a reading or when you're talking to people, there's no reason to use those kind of charged words. You can, but you want to explain it. Don't just say, oh, it's debilitated, that's bad. You want to explain the process, because explaining it, you're going to wind up talking about the full range of something. Here's the positive part, this emotional depth and power and courage, But the difficult part is if you express that externally and you think that the key to your pure love and the devotion in your heart is some external situation trying to control that rather than control yourself, then there's going to be an enormous amount of turbulence and emotional battles and emotional will rather than emotional courage and depth. There's just going to be emotional power struggles, and then everything's a mess.